Hi everybody, I welcome Jacob Faturechi in Line by Line today. Hi Jacob.
Hello.
And Jacob picked an interesting song by Hayedeh, song Faryad.
Mhm.
I hope I pronounced it correctly. Jacob, why did you pick that song?
So Hayedeh is my favorite singer. She's a contralto, and I just love contraltos. And she sings in Farsi, and I grew up listening to her songs and songs like hers. And so, uh, actually, I mean, when just listening to things by myself, like in the car, I just put on Haida songs. That's all I have on my thing for like hours and hours, right? Um, and I figured I would pick her most iconic song. This is the song that she really felt was kind of an anthem for her. And so Haide was a successful artist before the revolution in Iran. And after the Islamic Revolution, she had to leave and come to the United States. And so there's kind of a genre of songs that Persian exiles here in the United States sang, which is they're sad and they're kind of like love songs, but simultaneously they're expatriate refugee songs. Um, so this song, the name Faryad means uh, call for help, right? Yeah, and it's so this was her call for help, and she talks about being estranged and being caught up in a storm and her having a broken wing, um, and being far away from that which she's familiar with. And uh, it's it's emblematic of a lot of her songs, which are can be translated in a lot of different ways, but they're all about longing. And in the Persian tradition, um, Persian poetry, there's a lot of, especially from the Sufi influence, there's a lot of songs that are about love that either talk about romantic love or actually also talk about wine and intoxication, but that's something else. But they're simultaneously religious and um, romantic and political as well. And I just find the depth of that really moving. Um, Especially, I mean, these are songs from my childhood, and um, yeah, that's why I picked it.
Oh, thank you. I relate on the immigrant level. Yes, I changed country couple times in my life. So, um, it's interesting, right? Like people understand based on like even coming from different cultures, but based on that one common life experience that immigrants will understand other immigrants. If they had to adjust, if it had been always looked at and called, "Oh, you're not from here," and you're like, "Yeah, I'm from here." No, you sound different. You look different. You're not one of us, basically. And if that happens from early age, uh, there is
Yeah,
always
and
that longing to belong.
yeah, and you know, there's this word we've started using in this little corner recently a lot, domicide. You-
Wow.
Have have you heard that word before,
I
domicide?
heard that word. I never thought of it. Actually, I heard it without understanding it. So, Jacob, you can.
Yeah, so it's killing someone's home, killing where they feel comfortable, where they what is home to them, you know. Um, and I think only recently have I really, you know, as I was growing up, I always kind of thought of myself like when people would say you're a Persian, I would be like, no, I'm not. Like I don't care about Iran at all. I and it's funny, but I am so much more Persian now, um, in my 40s than I was in my teens and my 20s. And part of that is just understanding how formative the experience of being a refugee was. And I guess really as a teenager and even in my 20s, I I didn't want to face that. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to. And now I'm a lot more comfortable with it.
You embraced it somehow, right?
Well, I've become I've I've become easy with it. I've become able to live with it as opposed to fleeing from it. I think um I think we did flee from Iran. We really did. And the United States was and is a refuge. And so it took lots of years of therapy, but finally dealing with my post-traumatic stress disorder from my childhood in Iran and everything that happened there, eventually being able to stop running and to turn around and just look at things. And yeah, to stop running and face a lot of things which aren't as monstrous when when you stop running. Yeah.
I relate to that.
Yeah, being a child of war, I mean, war is horrible. It's it there's that there's a Dolly painting, Visage of War. It's one of my favorite paintings. And I don't really like Cubism. I don't like Picasso, but Guernica, it's it felt to me like that is the way you should depict war. If you haven't seen Guernica by Picasso and Visage of War by Salvador Dali, um, those are the two paintings that make me appreciate modern art, I I don't think you can see war outside of that type of either surreal or cubist way and have any real understanding of it. Yeah, it's when I was growing up in the United States, I would tell my friends I envy them their naivete. I still envy my American friends their naivete. Um, they to live in a country that's there hasn't been a war on United States soil in over 100 years. So outside of living memory, you know, actual war. And it's so safe here. It's a luxury. It's a beautiful thing, like to live in a place of peace.
I agree. Thank you.
امیدم را مگیر از من خدایا خدایا خدایا. Do not take my hope from me, O God, O God, O God. دل تنگ مرا مشکن خدایا خدایا خدایا. Don't break my afflicted heart, O God, O God, O God. من دور از آشیانم سر به آسمانم. I'm away from my home. I don't like the way they translated it. It says the actual words are my head is towards the sky. It means I'm looking for help. They say portionless and tired. Not how I would translate it. بی نصیب و خسته من مندم جدا ز یاران. Unfortunate and tired. I'm away from my friends. از بالای طوفان بال من شکسته. From atop the typhoon, the winds, my wing has broken. امیدم را مگیر از من خدایا خدایا خدایا. Don't take my hope from me, O God, O God. دل تنگ مرا مشکن خدایا خدایا خدایا. Don't break my lonely heart, O God, O God, God.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first stanza.
Well, like what I noticed is a request not to lose hope.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? The one I didn't like the translation. It says "Sar be asamana." My head is towards the sky. Like I'm looking up at the sky. Yeah, she 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 was she was very hopeful of and it's kind of funny being here in Los Angeles. In a lot of my family, they look at the news in Iran and they're hoping that there will be another revolution, and it's like I, I I generally I just don't say anything because when we first came here, like everybody's like, yeah, the like the Islamic Republic can't last. And they thought when Khomeini died that that maybe it would all collapse, and of course it didn't. And now there's a lot of people who they seriously, they're it's a kind of nostalgia and a kind of hope for going back to the way things were that I think is completely unrealistic. But yeah, why would I want to take somebody's hope away from them?
Yeah. Also loneliness in here. My friends are away. And
Yeah, it's the domicide. She says over and over again, I dur az ashianam. I am away from those things which I am familiar with, right? And so there's this other song by another singer, Homera, um, which is um, which says, "I want to go to the sea coast," right? That's it's and here in Los Angeles, like the ocean's right there, and Persians go to the beaches here a lot. Whereas in Tehran, we had to drive and it was like a vacation away to go to the Caspian. And as a kid listening to that song, I never really understood that it was a song about wanting to go back to the shores of the Caspian. It was like, yeah, it's beautiful here and there are beaches, but it's not the same, you know? It's funny, like I didn't understand as much as a kid. Now I listen to these songs and I realize there's a constant subtext of being a refugee and wanting to go back to even that song about wanting to go to the um, to the sea coast. It says, "I'm in love with the deserts," and it's like she's saying, I want to go back even to the deserts, right? Of what was her country. I don't have positive um, I don't have positive memories of Iran because I was only 2 when the revolution happened. But now I think I appreciate just the idea of having had that, even though I never had it myself. Does that
belonging.
make any sense?
Yeah, yes, it does. It's the roots.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm projecting here, so I might be way off, Jacob. It's that idea that you have this solid roots from where you came from, that respect and appreciation for it. And when you look back at your roots and you don't remember and you don't know, it's like it's difficult. You feel way more lost, let's say. Um, I felt like I don't belong all the time, like in all the countries I lived in. Like even in Ukraine, because I wasn't born there either. I was a foreigner. Like I came to Ukraine when I was 2 years old, and was already different because Tatars are not Ukrainians
Mhm.
as well. And yeah. It's interesting. I met a Iranian family in Poland. Very religious, very Muslim, praying every day. It's
That's
classical
interesting.
family.
Most of the religious Muslims um, were happy with the revolution. Um, it's it was the people who loved they thought they loved the West, and then they came here and they realized that they loved the West the same way I love um, American Chinese food. I don't like actual Chinese food. I like American Chinese food. I like pizza, not Italian pizza, American pizza, you know? And it's so Iran was very Western in certain ways. And um, I think coming here for a lot of the expat community, um, it's interesting seeing into that community. It's, I don't think, I'm not a huge fan of standpoint epistemology. I think it is possible for someone who desires to see things, to have empathy, to actually see things through the eyes of someone else. Um, but that takes real effort and time and patience that, frankly, I don't think most people have. And that's, I think, part of the reason why a lot of people think it's not possible to really see things through other people's eyes unless you lived through it. We talk about walking in someone else's a mile in someone else's shoes. Um, it requires real effort. It's not impossible, but it's difficult.
A mile in someone else's shoes. I, being a foreigner all the time, I very often feel misunderstood. Like I say something and I'm sure I said it means what it means, then people don't understand it. They could not get it. I mean, I say a sentence of experiences that nobody can relate to. Not nobody, but like people I meet could not relate to because they didn't have the same experiences. And walking a mile in someone else's shoes, I think talking about one subject that people uh, like, let's say, describing a toy. I will see colors, yellow and blue, but somebody else, oh no, I see a shape. Also, I know what it is. I see plastic. Everybody I talk to gives a different dimension to the same real thing.
Mhm.
And then they will tell, okay, but this reminds me of that other thing, and let's talk about it. And then conversation starts. And in that moment, when we both see different side of, let's say, song lyrics, we pick up kind of the missing pieces from another person, and that kind of maybe not a mile in somebody else's shoes, but like it's just touching the shoes of somebody else somehow.
One of the things that really changed how I view the world, um, growing up, I always thought that it was just a sort of social construct that women wore more colorful clothes than men do, and women seemed to care. Like there's all this joke, these jokes about women, saying taupe and off white, and men being like, it's just white, right? Um, and then I read an article that talked about the genetics of how we see color. And so some women, just because of how our eyes work and what's located on the X chromosome. So women have two X chromosomes, men only have one. And because of that, there are different types of cones that, so if you have all the different types of cones, which you can only have if you have two X chromosomes, you can see a lot more colors than, so there are women who can see far more colors than it's at all possible for any man to ever see. And most women see more colors than most men. And a lot of men see are basically colorblind, see very few colors. And when I saw that that was a physical reality, and just imagined how different life must be if you see more colors than I could ever see, right? In a sense, I am blind to your world. There are women who see more colors than it is physically possible for me to see. And that's when I became absolutely convinced that this idea of men and women not being just fundamentally different from each other is just insane.
The colors is one thing. Imagine growing another person. It's inside your body. Imagine
And
being that.
the hormonal cycle, like living the hormonal cycle that women live, like men and women are just so fundamentally different. Um, and I have to say that really put the lie to clown world to me, was just being aware that as a man, yes, I have a lot in common with women. I have a lot in common with women. And I'm actually, I think I'm probably one of the more effeminate men. I really do. I think I am. Um, but it's still something so, so different.
Yeah, I got a lot into trouble for just saying, well, why do you deny differences? It's so, it's counterproductive. It's like when you just go no, and people explained it to me. Oh, but it's we know women and men are different. It's not that we want something else. We want like social treatment which is equal and stuff like that. And I said, well, but that's different story. It's another thing. Like, so we are different. Yes, we all are different.
You know, it's funny. The people who talk about diversity
Mhm.
don't actually appreciate diversity. And so the people who see the craziness of the people talking about diversity then start talking about how bad diversity is. And it's like, no, diversity is actually a good thing, but it has to be real diversity. It has to be actual diversity.
I actually really like that you have the perspective of diversity, which is very
Mm.
good because it's it's that it's that idea that we can know what is that from many sides, and yet we bring in a new person who will say, oh, but that smells, for example, right? Like, and nobody else like, what, we did not think to smell it even, like, there is this dimension to that ball, like, that's interesting. And somebody, oh, that ball has something on the inside. And the same with the project. New people with fresh perspective, diverse perspective, they will see through the project and they will identify the problems and they find the solutions way faster, way more original. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just looking at the lyrics, and actually there's only one more stanza, and then it just repeats the two stanzas over. So yeah, there's only that one stanza, but I really don't like the translation. Um,
Give
yeah.
your translation, the way you understand it,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
it's about your understanding of the song, not about how the author meant it. Uh, that's
Well,
it.
no,
What stood
it's
out to
not even
me.
that. Like the English translation isn't an exact translation, so that's why. Yeah,
Mm.
I translate things more literally, I guess, when I do that. Yeah, so از حریر دلم رفته رنگ هوس درد خود که به که گویم در درون قفس با که دستات قضا بسته پای مرا روز و شب ز گلویم نل خیزت و بس میزنم فریاد هرچه باد آباد وای از این طوفان وای از این بیداد. um so it's she's using this bird imagery, and she talks about how from within a cage she is singing out, and um there's this tufan, this typhoon. I mean, it's the same word, this storm, right? And in the middle of this storm, she has to sing out. هرچه باد آباد وای از این طوفان وای از این بیداد. And as much as the wind is storming around her, she has to cry out. میزنم فریاد, right? I cry out. And yeah, the imagery really captures me. This bird imagery of uh, at one point, I mean, she talks about having a broken wing, and in this stanza, she talks about um, singing out from within a cage. Um, it's beautiful.
Bird can fly. It's free. It doesn't know borders. And having a broken wing, it's the bird. Bird also sings. Actually, singers always feel like birds. There is this freedom. There is this voice thing where
Yeah.
you kind of create this beauty with your voice. And but then there is also this freedom.
Yeah. And in Iran, so some people would have cats. Nobody, like, you would not bring a dog inside. Um, but people as pets often would have birds. And so yeah, the the image of a caged bird, um, it's a common one in Persian song. And you're right. I mean, singers always like sing about songbirds because I think a lot of musicians just identify with that naturally. Um, but also, I guess, this idea of being blown away by the storm, right? She keeps on talking about this typhoon, tufan. Um,
Being too small as well.
yeah,
I'm too tiny, I'm too broken, I'm caged. All of those feelings mixed in, and all of them true for her.
right. Because I mean, you're an individual, and there's a revolution, right? The government, like it's beyond her individually, right?
Yeah, and people feel very tiny in that kind of avalanche. I don't know, typhoon, everything that comes. You can't control it. You can't sing your way out of social changes. And there is there was this story about a singer who went into war, and he was posting all the pictures of himself, and then he just disappeared among soldiers. But nobody ever heard of him. They kept thinking about that one singer who used to be on stage a lot and used to entertain people. And the singers, they see themselves as servants. It's not this narcissistic stage. Oh, look at me singing. No, they come out, and the way they sing, they want to make your world better. They want you to feel understood.
There's a huge difference between somebody who is a good singer to an audience. I think, um, there used to not exist the type of singer we have now, which is a recording artist. There's something different about a live artist who is there in front of a crowd and feels the crowd, moves the crowd, and is in sync with the crowd. And a recording artist. And, you know, I think that's why, I mean, we have a lot of people who lip sync these days, right? There are singers who lip sync. They don't actually sing while they're on stage because they're moving around so much and stuff. They don't want to be out of breath. But that's a whole different type of show. It's not interactive. I went, so Paul is really critical of Jordan Peterson doing the tours, which I think misses what Jordan Peterson gets out of the tours. Because when he speaks to a large crowd and he can tell our reaction, he hears our laughter, he hears us clapping, he sees whether or not we're paying attention, if people are taking notes, if it gets quiet, right? And it's funny, but actually I think that's what allowed Donald Trump to so be in touch with the people, was he would have these live events. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
if
he was like a stand-up comedian. He had his routine, he had his little walks, he had his moves, he had his crowd. It's like Trevor Noah did this very funny comparison by Donald Trump routines and stand-up comedians routines. He does
yeah,
all of that, and that's what it's a performer thing. I know I was
right.
like on stage singing since I was 4 years old. Like I was put on stage and I was singing, and it's massively different when you can perform for other people. You kind of see that you connect to them. You become this energy antennas somehow, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I absolutely agree. I actually also, when I see Donald Trump on stage, I do, oh my God, he's doing the thing. I could see it. He's like drinking in the crowd, and he has this that I think he actually enjoyed rallying way more than the office.
Yeah.
It's an
No, okay,
impression
I
though.
have to say, so this is one of my pet peeves. A lot of people talk about audience capture as if it's a bad thing. You know,
Why? It's
I
good.
I think it can be. Look, if you are reflecting the wishes and the will of large numbers of people, if you are able to give voice to things that are important to them, um, it's one of the reasons I do my Just Chatting stream. I see what people want to come on and talk about, and um, I pay attention to how many people pay attention, and I would like to be captured by my audience because I think that would mean that I am serving them. It's no longer about me. And it's funny, I quote this at Christians left and right just because I can. But Jesus says, don't be like the leaders of the Gentiles who lord it over them. The leaders among you must be the servants of all. And it's one of those things, like, when I was reading the Gospels, it hit me and it was like, yeah, Jesus really is Jewish. Because I think there's this idea that is very not Jewish of a leader who is important. And the Jewish idea of a leader is that he's the least important.
It's also the Tao. Tao Te Ching, it's the way the leader is described. He's behind the crowd because he has to see the crowd. somehow. Like he walks behind the crowd and he sees the crowd, and that kind of, that's the only way he can help the crowd and lead the crowd, if he understands the crowd, even from the last place.
Yeah, in the Kabbalah, so there's this idea of, so the highest sphera is called crown or keter, and the lowest sphera is called malchut or kingship. And they are, you can have one or the other in the tree. You can't have both, because the first and the last coincide.
Just beautiful. They're the same. So remember, there was this line. She was, I don't remember from where. It was, she was planned from the beginning, but appeared but appeared on the last day. And they always like appeared on the last day, but she was planned from the beginning. And that was really beautiful. It's from the book of Proverbs. Yes, the book of Proverbs. Again, don't remember the name.
Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, and that which is the end is the beginning. That which,
That's the sentence.
yeah, that yeah, it comes from, it's in the liturgy. You must have done it with when you
Ariel.
had, yeah, with Ariel, you had I believe it is in Lachadodi. Yeah, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Yeah.
I actually loved learning Kabbalah and discovering with Ariel and Graham. I don't know if you met Graham.
Not sure.
You talked about streaming and serving. I actually noticed how the viewers change when I enter, and how viewers change when they're fighting, for example. I notice what keeps the crowd's attention doesn't really make me very proud of the crowd itself, because when the conversation is really deep and interesting, people get bored.
Okay, I have to say, part of that may be a problem with YouTube. What I've noticed is sometimes when I'm having a really good conversation, because I do pay attention to how the thing, there appears to be a dip in the middle of the really good conversation. It's like an absolute dip. And what I believe that's caused by, and I'm just guessing, is YouTube only registers people if they're as actively watching, if I think they're on that page, if if they're on if they're not being active, because the comments, the dip happens when people aren't commenting. And sometimes people will start commenting because they're not so interested in what they're listening to. And sometimes they will start commenting because they are. And I think that's why you can get bad signals, which is if people are paying really deep attention to the point where they don't want to comment, they're not thinking about commenting themselves. I think YouTube actually registers a dip in interest, which is, I think, deceptive. Because
That's excellent.
I've noticed like I'm having a really good conversation, and suddenly there'll be like a big dip because nobody's commenting.
I never thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's weird to me that people have this idea that it's bad to be captured by your audience. Like, I understand it's bad if you're captured by the wrong people. So that's why, you've been to my Discord server. I have the hierarchy of voices and stuff, and I'm very careful. I try to elevate voices which I think are saying important things, right? Um, at the same time, I want to be captured by the voices of the wise. I want to be captured by the voices of wise people. I one of the things I promised myself as my channel grows is I try to have at least as much conversations offline with individual people as I do online. And um, I actually message people and I say, "Hey, can I talk to you? I just want to talk to you. I just want to hear what you have to say." Because there's definitely sampling error and there's definitely problems, but the problems aren't, I mean, I keep on saying it. Don't think for yourself. Do not think for yourself. The worst thing you can do is think for yourself. Think for other people and help other people think for you. And that's the dynamic of the musician or public speaker who actually, while they are in front of a crowd, feels the beat of the crowd and is swayed as much as they sway the crowd. There's a resonance there that's important and beautiful.
Wow. It's like there are so many parts I would like to ask more about. Um, we're a bit shorter on time. It's like so, Jacob. Would you like to bring the song to a conclusion in a sense, to talk generally?
Well, for me, one of the interesting things I didn't realize was until rather recently is that just as you can have accents in how you speak, so there's a Persian accent when you're speaking English. You can have accents in music. This was one of the most interesting things that happened to me. Um, I was watching a YouTube video of this absolutely amazing belly dancer. And she was moving with the music in ways that just, it was amazing. Like every time, at every beat, what every time the music moved, she moved, right? And I saw um, a comment that had like a very large number of thumbs up, which said, she's not even moving with the music. Why? She's just a beautiful woman, and people are just looking at her because she's a beautiful woman. And I was like, have you lost your mind? I didn't get it until I spoke to a friend of mine who's a music composer. And he told me, yeah, different cultures have different musical cues. And actually, Middle Eastern music is on a different scale as Western music. There are these things called half tones, and so it maps on differently to the Western ear as it does to the Eastern ear. And I always thought um, I don't have an accent when I speak English. Very few people tell me I have an accent, and usually, like, I think they're
I
just
think you
wrong.
sound just Californian to me.
Yeah, it's a
It's
California accent, if anything. But then I realized I have an accent in my music, and that's my excuse for why I'm such a bad dancer. Because actually, I can dance to Persian music, and I'm a fine dancer as far as Persian. But every time I try to dance to Western music, everybody tells me I'm just really bad.
I
And
might steal that excuse, Jacob.
I have an excuse that that it's it's a different. I'm accustomed to different music. So I don't know. Maybe for a long time, the beginning section, there's a piano piece at the very beginning of this song that I actually had as my ringtone on 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 my phone. And I remember my phone ringing, and somebody who didn't know me, who was just passing by, was like, "Oh my God, that's really beautiful." And it was an American. Um, and so I wonder what people will think of this song if they go and listen to it. Um,
I will provide the links below to the song. I found a really beautiful 6-minute piece with like almost 1.5 million views. So for that song, it's amazing. So people do listen to it, and I actually liked it. It maps really well with mine ear.
yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you for bringing it. Today's podcast had been sponsored by Free Time. We both had it, Jacob and I. People, look under your seats. You have it 24 hours per day. Use it wisely. And yeah, please follow Jacob. Absolutely amazing live streams. And he invites people in the link to join actual live stream and actually talk to Jacob or his guests almost every day on a daily basis. Like, really impressive. Yeah, all the links below, guys. Follow, subscribe, support, and bye.
Paul said this on one of his videos about me. He said I'm like an earthquake. Wherever I see a crack, I push on it, right? Um, and that's very, very different from Paul. And yet his interviews are there's a place for that, and there's a place for what I do. And they're very different.
Like, for example, you, the one who shakes things up, and Paul is who is kind of this nurturing type. This is the diversity. Those are the two different people with two different approaches, with two fresh perspectives to one thing, and you all will find a solution.
Yeah.
I agree.